Hello, how you doing? I'm going to talk about abandoned houses. Okay. I have always had a fascination with abandoned houses. I had as a child, I used to like abandoned houses. And you would now as a child, you don't understand the dangers of going into an abandoned house. But a lot of children in the neighborhood, they were going to abandoned houses. They were getting pocketbooks. Some of the boys were getting some wood, basically for a fire, I guess. They were getting wood so they can make go-karts, etc. Okay. So I just caution you against going to an abandoned house. Now, if you find an abandoned house that you're fascinated with, uh, I suggest you go to the city, see if there's a lien on it. Maybe you want to pay that lien. Okay. I also suggest you go to the city. When you go to the city, ask them about asbestos testing. They may say, well, we don't bother with that. On the other hand, they may say, well, you have to pay $4,000 or more for an asbestos test. If you don't want to pay that money, just forget it. Don't even bother with the abandoned house. And what would happen is the city would just tear it down for $13. That's how much the asbestos test is going to cost the city, $13. Okay, but they're going to charge you $3,000. Okay, I do not recommend that you walk into an abandoned house like you see some of these explorers walking into abandoned house. I don't recommend you do that because most of the time abandoned houses have already been stripped. All the plumbing is gone. All the electric wiring is gone. The ceiling has already been torn to pieces. The floor has already been torn to pieces. So if you go wandering inside that house, you could easily just fall into the floor. If the abandoned house is 2-story, I definitely don't recommend you go into that house. Do not go upstairs because you could fall right from upstairs to downstairs. And who's going to find you? It's going to be hard to find you. It really is. Yeah, because see what's going to happen to your cell phone. You can't call the police because your cell phone's going to go all over the place too, and you may just hurt your leg or ankle. I do. If the abandoned house has 2 stories, I do not recommend you go upstairs at all, ever, because it's just not stable. Now, there's 2 types of abandoned properties. Some you can repair, some you can't. Most of the houses, abandoned houses, you cannot repair. But like I said, some you can, but most you can't because it's already been stripped and so on and so forth. So like I said, go to the city office to see if there's a lien on it, a tax lien on it. Go to the city office to see if you have to do asbestos testing, etc., etc. Now, most abandoned houses you cannot really repair. Most, but not all. So look, I recommend you just strip everything from the house, start from scratch as though you're building a new house. Now, you might want to keep the foundation. Some abandoned houses that were built 34 years ago, they have very good foundations. Really good, because I remember I had a house that had very good foundation. I did not want that one torn down. I wanted the foundation. It had a very good foundation. So, look, you go to the city, because if you plan on just stripping it and start from scratch, go to the city, get your building permits, etc. Now, what I recommend you do is don't just go into the house just first. I recommend you start with the grounds. Go ahead and cut that grass and that tall trees because you have to have somewhere to park. You have to have somewhere to walk. So go ahead and cut that grass, etc. Okay, and there's no telling what is in the yard. All kinds of pieces of iron that you could trip on. So I do recommend before you even cut the grass, go over the yard to see if there's any pieces of iron, any kind of knives, whatever that you could easily trip on. Okay, so you're gonna need a trash bag. Okay, you may need a trash bag to even go through the yard. But go ahead and cut as much grass as you can in the yard. Okay, now get a roofer to take the shingles off because when the house collapses, those shingles are going to fly everywhere. You don't want that. So get a roofer to take most, if not all, of those shingles off the roof. Now, the next thing you do is get the windows out. You take the glass out, take the window frame, get the glass out. Because like I said, when the house collapses, that glass is going to fly everywhere. The last thing you take out is the doors. The doors really hold up the house. The last thing you take out are the doors. Now, you have to decide what direction you want the house to fall in. I recommend the easiest is just to fall in the back. So once you take the shingles off the house, get a roofer to take the shingles off the house, take all the windows out, take the doors out. Decide, let's say, for example, you're going to let the house fall backwards. Okay, so take those planks of wood off of the back and be sure to take those two corners out. Now, what would happen, it would take about 24 hours for that house to collapse. So you may as well let it collapse. You may as well just go somewhere for 24 hours, just let it collapse. Now, what I recommend you do, put some tarps. While the roofer's up there, tell the roofer to put some tarps, 2 or 3 tarps on top of the house. Nail them on top of the house, because when the house collapses, you don't want all those planks, whatever is left, to go flying everywhere. Particularly if you have a neighbor that's beside you or a neighbor that's in front of you. You don't want those planks of wood to even go forward, because there could be a road there. So tell the roofer to put some a tarp around the whole house, so that when it falls, at least the tarp will contain some of that debris. But like I said, let's just say you decide to let it fall backwards. Okay, so go ahead and take the planks out of the back, take those two corners out, and just leave the house. It would take about 24 hours to collapse. Okay. Now, if you have a neighbor right beside you, now, of course, you can't let it fall to the side, because that's going to be a problem with the neighbor. You cannot let it fall to the right or the left, because that's going to be a problem with the neighbor. But like I said, be sure to put some tarps over the house, so it would, at least, if you have a neighbor to either side, put some tarps on it to make sure that debris does not go into the neighbor's house. And like I said, put some no trespassing signs on that property so kids would not go in there. Put a string to tell those kids stay away from that property, because it's going to take about 24 hours to collapse. But that's how I would recommend you handle an abandoned house. Bye.